Moving on, it's time for something less serious, the regular portfolio segment, where I talk to non-expert, regular folks who work normal jobs and watch this channel for some reason and feel like sharing their portfolio with me for some reason. And if you're one of the 5 people who get this far up a video and want to chat with me for some reason, send me an email at antonio@researchtalks.com or DM me on Twitter and we'll most definitely make it happen. All right, that said, this week I spoke to Andreas, who also runs a YouTube channel. His channel is called Shovel Stocks, though he doesn't post too much on it, and I'll probably have to push him to do so in the future because he had a few good interviews that I watched. And yeah, anyways, let's see what Andreas likes and doesn't like to do with his own money. All right, Andreas, I've seen you around on YouTube, on Twitter. You have your own page. I've seen some of that stuff. I even saw you in Joanna's course on geology, so I kind of know you, but then again, I pretty much don't know anything about you. So tell me, who are you? Where are you calling from today, and what do you do for a living?
Yeah, hi Antonio. Thanks for having me on. So my name is Andreas. My Twitter handle is Shovelstocks, and yeah, we met each other on Twitter. And so I'm a full-time private investor from Germany. So I'm living in Munich, and actually, maybe for some people this will be a contradiction that I'm also a big uranium investor, but it is what it is. And yeah, I'm 42 years old, and before I became a full-time private investor this year, I have worked in the tech industry for, let's say, 11 years. So as an enterprise account executive, so my role was basically, you could say, a sales role, but strategic sales. So basically, I would look for companies that were a good fit, that could use the software that we sold, and then manage the whole sales cycle, talk with executives, talk about the contracts, and then also close the deal. A lot of these skills are helpful for me in what I do now, just that I don't sell the companies, but that I buy basically their stocks, so to speak. And yeah, so the end of last year, I decided to because stocks and investing were always something that was important to me, and yeah, through certain developments, I was able to do this now full time. And I mean, you could say that this was maybe not the best time to go full time into equity investing, because we had now like historic bear market. But on the other hand, I thought, okay, if I could get past this, then basically I had all the bad things happening at the beginning, then I can move on after that.
I have been thinking about that too, actually. I mean, I like it that I started out at least more seriously in a market that was very hard to deal with, because the other option is, starting off at the beginning of a bull market and thinking you're smarter than everybody. And then once you've made a lot of money, then you would blow it up. Sort of like what happened to Rick Roll in his 30s. But just to get this straight, you're a uranium investor who, with his tax money, finances the paychecks of the people who are against nuclear. Am I getting that correctly?
Yeah, that's an interesting way to think about it. Yeah, exactly.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, obviously. What do you think? What's like one thing that people get wrong about Germany? Because I see a lot of people bashing Germany on Twitter. I've been guilty of it myself, but most of the times I would provide like a chart of them having invested a lot of money in renewables and that maybe not having worked out the way that they had hoped. What is one thing that you think people are sort of, being aggressive towards Germany for, but that's not maybe not completely fair or something like that?
Yeah, I think they misunderstood they confused the politicians with the people that live here. So of course, maybe 10 years ago, a lot of people were maybe against nuclear because they know a lot about it. And then you had Fukushima. And then, of course, you think, okay, this is not a good thing. But if we fast forward to now, if you look at the surveys, at the polls, the majority, even from the green voters, are pro-nuclear. So I think this is a misconception. And also that people, if you don't consume the media here, you don't have really an idea what is happening here. So I think it's the same for you in Belgium, that if you people from the US or from other countries, if they don't consume the local media, they don't have the full picture of what is happening. For example, when I started to invest in uranium, that was about 2.5 years ago, there was never even a mention of nuclear power in, let's say, a politician would even use that word because it was a political suicide. But now, every day, nuclear is in the news. They talk about it even today. There was a decision by the Bundestag to sign into law this extension of the three remaining nuclear plants until April, but maybe it will be longer later. So these are some of the things.
I agree. There was one video about a Belgian politician. I believe he's the mayor of one of the larger cities over here, that he was talking pro-nuclear stuff and supporting it and stuff like that. People were like, oh, this guy gets it. He's a great guy and stuff like that, without them realizing that, a couple of years back, his party was one of the parties that supported the nuclear phase out, not phase out, but closing some of the reactors. So stuff like that are proof of that, because Europe is a continent with many different countries that have their own sort of in-country politics, and then you have the politics of the European Union. It's kind of hard to understand it if you don't live in these countries. Even if you do live here, sometimes it's kind of hard to follow. So I do get it. How's the retail investment market in Germany, by the way? Do a lot of people around you invest in the stock market, and what do they mostly invest in?
Yeah, so there are a lot of investors here. I mean, of course, it has gone up during the COVID crisis, and before it was not. So Germany always had like a stock market that in the dot-com bubble, there were a lot of investors, and then basically the peak was when Deutsche Telekom, which is the big provider here, they came public, and then there was the crash, and then the people were scared of stocks, and then over the years it became better and better, and there was like a investing culture here, and then it really took off in 2020. But the people here are more focused on tech stocks, for example. So they're more focused on traditional stocks. Some invest in commodities, but they don't really get commodities in that sense. So there are more and more people understanding it now, but it still is maybe like half a year or 1 year behind the investor circles that you see, maybe that you find on Twitter or in the US.
I think I've only spoken to one Belgian hedge fund manager who was in sort of in the natural resource space. So I also feel you there. I guess there's just more people investing in Germany simply because there's just more people in Germany. So maybe as a percentage, I don't know how that is. Because you see these conferences about natural resources being organized in Germany and stuff like that.
But it's more gold. So the Germany has a history of gold because our currency was at least 2 times was gone, basically. So you had some form, then you had the Reichsmark and the Deutsche Mark, and then in 2002 the euro. So, and for example, this never happened in like the US or in Switzerland. That's why also, for example, the Swiss franc is so strong. So Germany has always a history of, and also because of the hyperinflation, that in the past that Germany has an affinity towards gold, and that's why you see. And so in gold investors, you see a lot, and also in gold stocks. But if you look at like battery metals, if you look at uranium and all that stuff, there you don't have as much, but it's developing. It's getting better.
I can't say the same about Bulgaria, where I'm originally from, when I was born. Because 25 years ago, Bulgaria went through hyperinflation and re-rating of the currency and stuff like that. And my parents actually paid their last month's rent or something along those lines by selling their wedding rings that were made out of gold. Wow. So pretty much they survived because of that gold component. But then I don't think anybody remembers that. So nobody cares about gold there, besides a few exceptions, I guess. Well, what about you? Are you a gold bug yourself?
No, so I had at the beginning of this year, I had a bit of physical gold as in the form of like similar to what Sprott does, so like a fund. But then I saw that the in terms of inflation and how it was going, it was not going in the right direction. So I sold it even with a slight profit, and then I put it all into energy stocks like uranium and others. And because I have the feeling, I mean, I don't know, of course, for sure, but that the at least when I look at the data of the last couple of years, that really gold is not doing what it's supposed to do. I mean, it could change, but then when I read when I see the interviews with different people that come also to your channel and other channels, the argumentation that they have, I cannot really follow why it should now change. Because, for example, they say, yeah, when the Fed pivots, then gold will go up. But then on the other hand, when the Fed pivots, then the tech stock and other things should be more interesting. So, but I'm not really into gold. I'm more like into energy, uranium, battery metals, quite a lot, and also healthcare. So biotech, for example.
I wish I had done that. I didn't, because my interest towards gold sort of went in all sorts of different directions. First of all, was inviting people to learn more about gold, and then was inviting people to sort of help me, I guess, for confirmation bias. And now I'm mostly inviting people for them to convince me that it was not a bad investment, which it was. I mean, I'm still losing money on it. Maybe over the long run it's not going to be, but who knows? And I've had mixed feelings towards gold in the last 2 years. And there's this funny chart on Twitter. I've got it up in front of me. It shows an event, the impact that event is having on the gold price and the reasoning. And it's like yields go up, it's bad for gold because there's competition for gold. Yields go down, it's bad for gold because declining inflation fears. And just dollar up, it's bad for gold because, you know, inverse correlation. Dollar down, it's bad because Indian gold tax looming. And it's always bad for gold. So it's kind of a joke, but then it's also been true over the last 2 years. So I feel you there. So what else do you have? I saw you published your portfolio breakdown on Twitter today. What else do you have in there? You got energy, you got healthcare even. What's that all about?
Yeah. So I have the main brackets are healthcare, roughly 27%, commodities, roughly 30%, and energy, 38%. And if we with healthcare, I mean mostly biotech. With commodities, I'm referring to like the battery metals like lithium, nickel and stuff like that. And for energy is mostly uranium. So uranium is 31% of my portfolio, and oil and gas. So this means mostly oil companies. So like the Canadian oil companies that are really going well right now.
What are frontier markets? Because you got 2.7% of that as well.
Yeah, frontier markets are, so you have emerging markets, which is something like Vietnam and Indonesia, but you also have frontier markets is something, usually people then talk about Africa, but Africa it's very tough to invest in. But what I have as frontier market is Uzbekistan. So Uzbekistan is really, so I opened a local brokerage account there because they are in the process of, so they were part of, as you know, of the Soviet Union, and then for many years they were still really in a dictatorship regime, you could say. And then in 2016, I think the local dictator of that country, he died, and then people were expecting, okay, this will continue, but all of a sudden the new head of the country, he really opened up the country to the West, and then they are in the process of privatization, and they also have a stock market. So what is happening there right now is that you can get into companies that are really good businesses. Like, I mean, they're also, of course, a commodities-based economy, but they have really businesses like, for example, like a glass company or like a steel manufacturing company, or they have the local commodities exchanges also listed. And they are highly profitable, but the like PE ratio, price to sales ratio, is very low, and but they're growing very fast, and that's why it's similar to something similar happened in Russia in the 90s when the Berlin Wall fell, and it opened to the West. And I discovered this like 1.5 years ago or 2 years ago, and then last year I made up an account basically.
Nice.
Yeah.
See that you might be watching Nomad Capitalist on YouTube. He likes those regions, and for good reason, I think, too. I also spoke to Brent Cook, who's he's a geologist. He writes a newsletter as well, and he told me there's lots of uranium. I mean, he assumes there's lots of uranium in Uzbekistan too, but nobody's exploring for it. I interviewed Kazatomprom and I asked them if they're gonna be doing that, but they told me that they're not, so they're staying focused on Kazatomprom. But Uzbekistan, very interesting, very interesting. I've
Yeah,
been
I mean,
thinking about these countries.
that's actually my biggest bear case for Uranium is actually Uzbekistan. I mean, if you would even call it a bear case, but they have this big company is called Navoy Mining, and they are big in gold and uranium. And but of course, you don't know what is the reserves, how much are they producing. But this is the only. But they will privatize the gold part, but not the uranium part. And there's something that could happen like 2011 with Kazatomprom that they
Mm.
oversupply the market. But I don't know if this will happen, of course. But for me, this would be even more a bear case than, for example, nuclear accident. Because let's say there's, I mean, of course, we don't want that, but somewhere there's a nuclear accident. I don't think that, for example, then China would stop their build out or other countries would stop their build out. So, and with the supply demand deficit that we have, I think for me, the bear case is really oversupply. If new supply comes that nobody expects.
Hmm. Well, I made a comment that you're not posting too much on your YouTube channel. Maybe you should find someone from there and try and interview them on
Yeah.
their bear case. I think that's going to be an interesting interview because I couldn't say if it's going to be or not going to be a bear case, but it's definitely an interesting topic to talk about. Given that energy is sort of the biggest part of your portfolio here, what would you, if you could only keep one of those sectors, would that be energy going forward? Like, is that the thing that you're most bullish on?
I mean, yeah, if you talk about the next like 1 to 3 years, then yes, I mean, the energy then is a no-brainer. But if we talk like long term, 10 to 20 years, it would be healthcare because there you don't have this cyclicality.
So if you could, so if somebody told you you sell everything, just keep one sector today, and you sell, you can only do another trade in like in 10 years, you would keep healthcare.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough question. But yeah, I think the problem with energy is it's really cyclical. So you can be up like 20, 30x, and then something happens, and then it crashes like no nothing else. And so yeah, then if you ask that way, then yes, it would be healthcare.
Mm-hmm. What if you were able to just to sell one of those sectors that you're in right now, and you had that same situation, somebody tells you you got to sell out completely out of that sector, you just pick one sector, you can keep all the rest, which sector would you sell out of?
And that's tough, I mean, because I don't have so many different ones, but yeah, I mean, I think I would keep battery metals and healthcare still.
Okay, you try and keep
Because
that.
if we talking really long term, then yes, because battery metals we need and for also for long term, and there also you don't. I mean, there can also be cyclicality, but yeah, I would keep then battery metals and healthcare.
Okay, cool. Do you feel comfortable talking about individual companies that you're invested
Yeah,
in?
sure.
Okay, so what is your sort
Yeah,
of I normally ask this gun to your head scenario question, but I feel
yeah,
like I've given you too many hypotheticals. So let's just say your top three stocks.
yeah.
What are those?
Yeah, so the number one is a healthcare stock. I mean, I will not talk too much about that because your channel is more commodities based, but it's ImmunityBio. And the interesting part there is that it's a founder. So one thing you have to know about biotech and that it's very similar to commodities investing. So it's also important, for example, skin in the game and also the different types of companies like explorer, developer, and producer. You also have in biotech, it's called different, but it's the same concept. And ImmunityBio is basically in the stage, like you would say, like a developer, like a bannerman, something like that. And the interesting thing about ImmunityBio is that the founder has already brought a cancer drug to market, all through the FDA process in the early 2000s. And then he later sold his two companies to big pharma. He became a billionaire through that. And then he put his all money into different companies that he built up. And a few of those got out of stealth mode in 2016. And one of this was ImmunityBio. And yeah, now he's working. He wants to do it again, basically. And one of the cancer drugs is now in the approval process. And the interesting part is that he owns 80% of the company. So there's not a lot of float basically, and
Flow.
that's ImmunityBio.
Okay. Did you
And
have as many? Did you have as many lifestyle companies in the biotech as we do in the natural
yeah,
resource space?
yeah, definitely. Yeah, these are the like the preclinical. That's where you only have like animal models, like animal data, but this data is, I would say, irrelevant. But it's the first step to getting to clinical. That's when you test with humans, but only it's about the safety. So they can have good phase 1 data, but it doesn't say much. So the fall off rates, I don't know them by heart, but it's similar to exploration where you have the first step and then maybe X% of companies only make it and the next step. And so you can lose a lot of money. And also they have to raise constantly money. So dilution is really your enemy in clinical. That's why I lost a lot of money in different companies. And that's why now when I enter a new company in biotech, it has to be at least after phase 2 or something like a royalty company or something like that.
Okay, so after
Yeah.
basically after they have drilled
Yeah.
something, so not
Yes.
geophysics
Exactly.
or magnetic
Yeah.
surveys, whatever. You wait for
Exactly.
that. That's sort of the first testing for the safety, and then you go, okay, I can
Yeah.
see the correlation there. Okay,
Yeah.
sure. What's the second stock?
Yeah, and then I would say Lake Resources. This is a lithium company, and it was one of my most successful investments. So I have in 2020, let's say by accident, even I discovered the battery metals because at that time I was still in Tesla, and then to Tesla, I sold it in 2021, so I'm not in that anymore. But I discovered the supply chain for battery metals, and I saw the potential, and I invested in a couple of companies. One of them was Lake Resources. They have a huge project in Argentina for lithium, and they use a process direct lithium extraction. So that's similar and not the same, but similar in uranium of in situ leaching. So you don't have to build a mine. You put a thing in the ground, and then with a certain solvent or sorbent, you get the brine up and get the lithium out. So it's very how you say environmentally friendly. And they work together with the process is done by Lilac Resources, which is a private company, but which is a unicorn. So they're backed by, I think, Bill Gates and other Silicon Valley guys. So it's a interesting combination. And yeah, so they are in the process of bringing that to production, basically.
Are you, because you got in early, it sounds to me, are you planning on selling or maybe taking any chips off the table given lithium's 200% move year over year?
I mean, I have sold along the way, so I always do that. If it increases a certain amount, I take some off. So I mean, at that stock, for example, I'm now playing with the house's money, you could say.
Nice.
I think it's like Rick Rule says. I don't know, he had some term for that, but so. And also at the moment, as I am full-time investor, I always have to sell because otherwise I live off that basically.
Okay.
But I have a lot still in there, and I believe that even people say, yeah, this lithium price, it looks like also what you said in recent value, it looks like what we had hoped for uranium.
Yeah.
But I think it has still a long way to go because there's no supply. I mean, nothing comes online. So as long as there's not a lot of supply coming, it will drop off a bit, but it's not like it will crash tomorrow, let's say.
I recently interviewed a hedge fund out of Switzerland, out of Zurich, and they're a battery metals focused hedge fund. So they were also bullish on it. I'm sort of dipping my toes in it, but I'm being very careful not to chase it, not to buy at the top, because I bought uranium, gold, and silver stocks all the way through the top. So I bought them, all the way up and then on the top, and then I only started slowing down my purchases when the price started declining. Rookie mistakes, I guess. But that's two. What's the third stock?
Yeah, I think the third stock would be it would be Silex Systems. So let's take something from uranium. So yeah, Silex Systems. I mean, you talked with Chapman also about that. This was a company I had in the portfolio since, let's say, 2020, when I did a lot of my uranium buying. I had Centrus Energy, and then also to Twitter, I saw some comments about Silex at that time, and then I scaled a bit into that company. So for me, the interesting part is that this is really, so first of all, that they're one of the few companies that is in uranium enrichment. Of course, they're not commercial yet, but they have this very unique process of laser uranium enrichment. And for me, it's a great picks and shovels play because first of all, their process that they have this laser isotope separation, you can use it not only for uranium enrichment. They have also another part of the business, which where I will write also an article about soon. That's about silicon, so enriched silicon, and the silicon is needed for chips for quantum computing, which is also something which is taking off very soon. So and also they can work with medical isotopes. So what I like about this company is that you're not only leveraged to uranium, but also to other sectors. And also I like their business model. For example, in enriched uranium, they have a royalty, and they also have a joint venture with Chemical. So they, once they're in production, they will receive the royalty. So you don't have that much operational risk. And I think this is a company that's more for me. So a lot of my portfolio is I'm more a speculator, but calculated speculation where you know about the sector and you get in early, and then you have certain developments that you expect and a certain thesis. And of course, uranium, most of these companies are speculation because they don't have cash flows yet. For Silex at the moment is also speculation, but in the future, I think it will become an investment because of their business model, and also because you will need enrichment. Also, for example, the price of uranium can spike and go down, but you will always need enrichment. And that's why it's different to a miner, which is you mostly play when it's in development phase, and then you want to go out before it goes into production, or you go in after the production is running well and you get dividends and cash flow.
Right. Sometimes with miners, though, it might be, dangerous to sit through from PFS to the first pour. Could be sometimes dangerous to sit there because a lot of things go wrong there. A lot of things go wrong on many places, though. How do you feel about Centrus? I don't know if you saw that today. Was it today or yesterday? Maybe Centrus received a $150 million grant from the U.S. government for the development of HALEU. And how do you feel about that? Does that mean something about Silex or not?
Not really, because this was just a contract that they had anyway. So they had in 2019, Centrus signed a contract together with the DOE to develop like these demonstration centrifuges. And then it took longer than expected, and then the plan was to produce first HALEU batches in this year, but then last year the DOE postponed that, and then the contract was actually ending this summer, but then they extended it a bit, but made also an RFP, and then it seems like Centrus got the bid for this RFP. But this is only for this demonstration, and also it's I read the headline 150 million is in total, but I think the first amount is like around 30 or 50 billion. It's a 50-50 cost share, and I'm not so bullish on Centrus for multiple reasons. One of the reasons is that they in terms of the money to really build this out, this demonstration and everything else, they seem to have challenges to really get so they wrote, for example, the last 10Q that if the DOE would not support them, it would be really challenging for them to bring this forward. And what I like as an investor or speculator is more companies that are not dependent on government or something like that. And that's why I like Silex more. It's one of the reasons, not the only one, because they have a backing by Chemical, and so they don't have these issues with the needing to not even being able to do their demonstration on their own, because they already have the laser modules. Let's say they have already tested them in Australia, now shipping over to the US, and so they You never read something like, okay, yeah, we're not sure if we can even do that, folks, if we can finance the testing. Because for me as an investor, I think, okay, if they have already challenges financing this demonstration plant, what is even happening when they want to really go into production? So that's why I'm really skeptical of Centrus.